ko kakita.
Yes, sir. Nag-record na.
Okay. Thanks. So PERT stands for Program Evaluation and Review Technique. And CPM stands for Critical Path Methods. So these two are network techniques lang to...
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
Nag-show ka o PowerPoint, sir?
Oh, di makita?
Wala pa nakita, sir. Ang Chrome ang nakita, sir.
Nagbitaw ko. Okay. Ana, makita ra.
Makita na, sir.
How about magkuha na siguro ito? Manawag ko para tabangan ko yung basa. Balik naman sa good tawag ko. Terms. You know. Saan itong participants? The PERT and CPM were developed independently in the later part of 1950s. These two are networks, techniques used for planning, scheduling, coordinating large-scale projects. So, na-establish na siya after the World War II. So, ang iyang first yun nga gibuhat, first na yung na-apply ang PERT and CPM is for Polaris missile project. So, the use of PERT began in 1958 through the joint efforts of the Lockheed Aircraft, the U.S. Navy Special Project Office, and the consulting firm of Booz, Allen and Hamilton in the efforts of the U.S. government. So basically, gikan ra na sa General Robin. Sige lang, ako lang kan dyan. So first, gibuhat yun ang PERT CPM to control the project Polaris missile. So since kaning Polaris missile, dako kanya siya nga project, it involves 1,000. Nato sa next. Let's see if naba sa next slide. So wala. So if magbasa mo, i-open ang chapter 4 sa kanang kuan. Sa Polaris missile nga project, daghan kayo ang contractors, 3,000. So lisod kayo na siya i-control if wala kay taro nga management. So 3,000 contractors niya, napag 11,000 subcontractors. So para mas dali ang pag-control and monitor sa project, si US government nagpatabang sa kaning US Navy sa project Allen and Hamilton, etc. In 1956, prior to the development of PERT, nanatay daan of critical path method, which is simply called CPM, developed by G.E. Kelly of Remington Rand Corp. And M.R. Walker of DuPont in an effort by commercial industry to make in advance scheduling and cost control methods. And by April 1958, CPM in application was demonstrated in a real success. Today, either of these two techniques can be used with deterministic and probabilities of time. The remarkable historical record of PERT and CPM on large-scale projects accomplishment has gained worldwide acceptance. In all major projects of the government, PERT and CPM network is a mandatory requirement. So karon kaning PERT and CPM network apil na sa bid documents. So if mo apil og bidding, naagid na apil gid na ang PERT CPM, that is to para makita if pila ka days o pila ka calendar days mahuman ang isa ka project. Under Presidential Decree 1594, prescribing policies guidelines na naagid na siya sa law. rules and regulations for government infrastructure contracts provide that the program of work shall include, among others, other things, estimates of the work items na ato sa atong gidiscuss last time. So pag-start na to, natay estimate, syempre, para sa project cost, quantities, then the PERT CPM network for the completion date. On January 27 of 1968, President Ferdinand Marcos issued Memorandum Circular number 153, which provides that, masahan lang na ninyo, ang thought na is that for all projects, ang i-require na is PERT CPM network, dili na ang traditional nga Gantt chart. So, mas dali man good evaluate or tan-awon if naka PERT CPM ka. With the use of PERT CPM, the project manager can easily obtain the following informations. So, unsa may mga informations nga makuha the project manager with the PERT CPM. First, the graphical display of project activities. So, makita dito, project activities and precedence. Estimate of how long will the project last. So, sa end of the critical path, makita if how many calendar days mahuman ang isa ka project. Determine which activities are the most critical to timely project completion. So, kaning activities nga ipasabot sa number 3 are the critical activities. These activities dapat dili na siya ma-delay. So, if ma-delay man gani na nga activity, ang project completion date ma-delay sad. Now, there are activities na bisan pa og ma-delay, dili siya maka-affect sa project completion. So, makita na nato later on. Determine how long any activity can be delayed without lengthening the project. So, maura na akong isulti ganina. Now, there are activities na pwede ma-delay but dili siya maka-affect sa completion date. Now, 3 phases of PERT CPM. We have planning, scheduling, and control monitor. So, planning, dapat mahuman na siya before mo start ang project. Let's say, construction project. So, before mo start, nahuman na. And by the way, PERT CPM pwede na ninyo magamit sa inyong research proposal. So, inyong ibutang mga activities nga need ninyo i-implement. So, as I've said, dapat mahuman ninyo ang planning stage before mo mag-implement sa project. So, as of now, November na. So, dapat by the end of the month, nakaplano na mo sa inyong implementation. So, pwede mo magamit og PERT CPM, ilista na ni mga activities, then precedence. Kung this activity, dili pwede mahimo if wala pa ning activity, and so on and so forth. And also, for the scheduling, dapat strict mo sa scheduling. Nagdali ba yata? Diba mo graduate man ka mo next sem, hindi pa din kana pa may OJT. But need niyo i-comply ang inyong project for only 5 months or 4 months kapin ra. So you have to manage your time nga masulod ra na nga time frame. So, control monitor. So for a project, so kaning control monitor mo sulod na ni siya if nagsugod na ang project. So let's say nag-excavate na and sa plan nimo, total excavation days 15 days but nahuman ra di ay og 12 days. So imo nang i-update sa data sheet. So ini ka progress report ninyo sa management team na ana kay pangalan na date nga actual versus the plan. Pwede na nimo ikuan sa client nga ma'am masayo ta na human sa excavation. So from the plan dapat excavation mahuman unta og 15 days but nahuman ra nato on 12 days, and that's a good news for the client. So ganahan sad ng client nga mo padayon. So planning is defined as determining the relationship between the work operation and sequence. So basically sa planning ilistra na ang activities. What are the activities like excavation, concrete pouring of tie beam, formworks, rebars installation, rebar fabrication, rebar installation, and so on. For the scheduling, so sa scheduling ato nato magamit ang atong gi-discuss before midterms katong work parameters. So makuha nato ang number of days by using the work parameters. And how to get the work parameters? If wala pa tayo experience, pwede ta manguta na sa mga foreman. If this certain activity, pila ka days mahuman for a set of workers. So, kato itong mga example kay puro raman to excavation. So, let's say painting, pwede sa nato butangan og work parameter. Controlling and monitoring, flexibility, and updated recomputations brought about by changing conditions is the key to a successful network programming. To keep the schedule more up-to-date and meaningful, it can be done by hand, but is more easier and less in cost if it is done with the assistance of computer to have the following output. So for controlling and monitoring, na may mga computer programs na na-develop. So pwede ra sad most of the companies kung hibaw-an na sila pilahan jud nga spreadsheet. So Excel ra na siya. Nasa uban nga nigamit og Primavera, few nasa MS Project. So for our discussions, pwede siguro, pero akong plan is kaan lang, Microsoft Excel. Since wala man tayo license sa Primavera and MS Project, pwede ra na to siya i-crack, pero basin masakpan ta, makasabay ta. And isa sa advantage if mag-manual lang ta, manual Excel, is that kabalo kita sa flow kay kita may mubuhat sa program, dili man ta wala may gireprimandaan. So unsay may mga outputs sa atong spreadsheets natay, the contractor is supplied the time status report showing overall status of the project in general and in particular. The contractor is provided with revised schedules. So kung naa na tay mga delay, so for projects nga grabe na ang delay, tag-as na kayog delay, mao na ang contractor need magbuhat og catch-up schedule. So for the catch-up schedule, tawag na siya catch-up schedule para mausab gani mapaubsan ang kana number of days for some activities. So how to shorten the number of days of few activities man. So mao na to mo na tong mag-add tag manpower or mo tender tag overtime. Ato to mabutang sa catch up schedules. Yes, since kanang flow gyud sa to ang PERT CPM is only based on regular working hours lang. Kanang mga overtime mao na mutapak na sa mga na delay. So, mga cost sa delay kay materials, kulang sa labor, daghang holidays, and etc. The contractor is provided with revised schedules. The contractor is supplied with cost status reports. Contractor should be supplied with those reports as frequently as desired required. In the planning phase, there are 5 inputs that can be obtained. The network diagram defining the activities in the project, the duration of activities, cost estimates of the activities for monitoring cost, cash flow requirements, resources estimates, and trade indicators. From the scheduled phase, daghana na. Tama na lang ibasa. Sige. Natay critical activities. Ang critical activities are activities along the critical path. Early start, earliest finish, latest start, latest finish. The float. Ang float, manay katang extra time. Kato ng mga activities nga pwede ra ma-delay. Nga dili maka-affect sa overall completion. Bar chart. Or time scale network, resource analysis showing the number and kind of resources, cash requirement, etc. Control monitor phase, addition to the project. So, kana usually kaya na natay mga additional works ay wala na appeal sa pagplano. So, let's say si client is dili ang ganahan magpa-tiles kay magpakuha na siya vinyl or sa iyang finish, but the along the construction na phase sabi ang nahuna magpa-tile works lang siya, so that's additional work and that work should be reflected on the plan. So makapuno na sad na sa atong days to complete the project. So, balisad sa additional works, nasa tayo deletion from the project. So, if na-short si client niya, ingan siya nga, ayaw na lang apila. So, ato na siyang i-reflect sa atong spreadsheet. So, changes as to duration, description, actual starting dates, actual finishing dates. The output phase consists of the following: time status reports, revised schedules, revised bar charts, revised resource analysis, revised cash flow, cost, status reports. 3 major reasons for construction failure. Unsa man? So first, unsa man? The unbalanced organization due to lack of planning and scheduling. So usual man yun na lack of planning and scheduling. Kay siyempre magdali man kay basta money issues. Nya sa mo gamay ra nga contractor. Tama na. Lack of financial planning. Bisan pa og dako nga contractor niya ang naa sa imong finance dili ka mao. But it's not so kanang lack of financial planning wala na sa tong part. Poor cost control. So let's have the network fundamentals. So ito kanina kay mga char na to. So this would be the start of magbuhat na ta og network diagram. So there are 2 slight different conventions for making a network diagram. Natay activity on arrow. So activity on arrow, that is using arrows to designate activities. So from this one, natay activity AOA. So kita. So this one, activity AOA. So atong designate kayang arrow. For another convention is activity on node, using nodes to designate activities. So if you use nodes to designate activities, we shall say that activity 1 to 2. So ang node ang atong gamiton. So this one kaning nailingin, yan ay numbers, itawag ni siya event. So this is event 1 and event 2. Now, this is the starting event, and the end event. And this is activity A. So kung maingon tag activity A, activity on arrow na siya. Kung kani atong basihan na. So kung atong designation, activity A, atong i-consider ana activity on arrow. Kaya ang arrow A man atong refer. But if we designate activity 1 to 2, that's activity on node. So usually, atong gamiton is activity on node. Kaya dali ra makita sa precedence. The elements of network diagramming. So precedence of A and B. Kung makakita tag activity A and B, ngayon ano yung forma? The work B cannot start until after work A is completed. For the next figure, activity C cannot start until both A and B are completed. So mga masabtan na siguro dahil, no? And for the last figure, A must be completed before either B or C can start. For this one, so A and C must be completed before mo start either B and D. Kanina ay arrow, ay broken lines. So ang broken lines, kining broken arrow, tawag nila to og dummy. So kanang dummy, wala na siya number of days. That is just to represent precedence. So kani, both A and B must be completed before C can start. No, this should be D. Ang i-update. Kaya nga ron niya, pa-down man. So, dili pa pwede mo start si D if wala pa naman si A and B. D depends only on B. Sayop man yun eh. D depends only on B and A. Ibalik-balik lagi niya, no? Ano na lang. C depends only on A. Wala na eh. And X is called a dummy. So, dummy ra na siyang activity. So, next, D depends on A and B. Nasasakto na. C depends on A. Same raman sila nga figure. Basin lahat din ng figure ang nasa ito nga. Y is a dummy. So, principles in networking. So, dili ka ng networking nga kanang madato ta. Kanang maingon ba nga. Sir, ganahan ka mo dato in 5 days. Siyempre kita ganahan ta mga tapulan kita ganahan kita mo dato, no? So, katong mga dili dato daan. Magtabi ta sir, Starbucks ta. Libre na ako. Dugay dayon kayo mahuman og istorya. Kaya nakasuway na yun mga nag-networking dire. Nag-networking ka, Clark. So, dili na siya pag-ingon nga. Dili siya pag-ingon nga ako na. Dili mayang networking. So, para sa dili lang siguro para sa tanan networking. Kay daghan man sa nadato sa networking. Dili lang sa tanan. Dili man na networking ang kapa, uy. Networking dito ang kapa. Matag raman kag kwartado. Mura raman to kuan. Scam. Oh, Uno. Uno. Unsa pa na lain dra. Vita Plus. Basi mong suko na take na may classmate mong suko dra. May nawa nga front row. Bitaw. By the way, nang apel ninyo kuan kana katong sa UEC days. Sa may inyong mga events or kuan online games. Nagway nang apil eh. Nagkuan ra mo na bakasyon. Char webinars. Nice, nice. Ganda webinars. Mga kuan discussion gyapon. Mura gyapon mo na eskwela. Nago na kay mo grades eh. Pa-plus points pa gyud. Charles is nag-thesis sir. Panday bitaw. Antayin mo na yung thesis. Char. Bitaw na ingon man ko nga mag-oral ka anda later on. Napay time. Hindi ra gyud. So let's continue na. Sana all nagtuon. Take ninyo eh. So principle number 1 for networking arrow diagram. First, that everything in the network or arrow diagram must have a meaning. For this one, every arrow represent an item. So every arrow represents an item of work and is called activity. So kada arrow, activity na siya ang represent. An event is the starting point of an activity represented by a circle, square, or in any geometrical form. So this one, tama na yatong event. An activity is dependent upon the and cannot begin until after the completion of all preceding activities. So it depends on the arrow. So by the way, ang arrow always to the right na siya. And numbering of events is also to the right and downward. Basta tanan ng activities and events dapat to the right. Same ra good kung magsulat ta to the right. All activities that start with the same event cannot begin until after the completion of all activities that enter an event. So for this one, making forms, order and deliver cement. So dili gyud ka makapur og footing slab if wala kay forms, wala sad kay semento, syempre sa may mga pour. Principle 2, that an activity has a single definite starting point and a single definite ending point. An arrow in the network must satisfy two basic questions. What activities must be completed before this one can start? The second question, what activities cannot be started if this one is not completed? So it's all about precedence lang. Dili ka maka-start sa next nga activity if wala pa na ako man nagod na. Principle number 3, the network does not describe time relationships, but rather dependency relationships. So basin og pareha nimo og sabot sa vectors, di ba? Sa vectors, if taas ang arrow, dako taas ang magnitude. If mubo ang arrow, mubo ra na siyang magnitude. So dili ingon na for per CPM, kay kare magbot imo batas on, imo move on, it doesn't matter. As long as sakto ang pagbutang sa imong arrowhead kung unsa nga activity or event ang nagsunod niya. The length and direction of activity arrow has no relationship with the amount of time required to accomplish the work presented by it. So, kabantay mo na arrow diri nga niliko raw. So, pwede ra gyud mo magliko-liko pud. Ayaw lang inyong utok paliko. That the network is hardly ever done by a single person. Siyempre, if o gamit tag per CPM, so mas daghan gyud ang workers. No, need na ka mag per CPM kung ikaw ra man mo buhat. Accomplishment of schedule made in the network diagram is influenced by several number of people who have something to do with the project and should be consulted when making the network. So, the subcontractors, so asa man nila to ma-apply. Sa scheduling nila to ma-apply. Ay ano na, subcontractors and suppliers should be asked to review the network. So, basin og sa imong rebar fabrication, nagbutang ra ka dito, mahuman ra og 5 days. Yeah, pag abot sa subcon, ingon sila nga, di na mahuman og 5 days, ay, mga 10 days na. So, maguban na to yung scheduled plan. Dapat mangutana gid ka. So, for the work parameters, ato ka mangutana kung kinsa ang mga mo implement sa projects. Fundamental elements, other activity. We have 3 fundamental elements: activity, event, and time. So, activity is the work operation required to complete a task, or in some cases, a segment of the task. It is the actual work between events. Basin makalimot. So, if not that work, let's say this one. Straight na po. So, mga nagitawag og events, kaning direct na numbers. This is event 1 and event 2. This, ang arrow mo na yung designate sa activity. So, kung maingan ka activity, let's say this is activity A, pwede sa nina to siya tagon og activity 1, 2, 2. So, kaning designation is activity on node. Kaning designation, activity A, activity on arrow. Kanila atong magamit siguro sa ngaran, activity on node. Events is a point in time signifying the beginning or end of one or more activities. It denotes the completion of all preceding or predecessor activities and the beginning of one or more succeeding activities. The event is indicated in the network as a circle. So, mga to nakita kanina. Circle yan, na number. For any form of geometrical symbols with a number written therein for identification. Numbering, how to number events. Numbering the events follows the construction of the network. And dapat walay duha ka event nga pareha og number. For this reason, one or more dummy activities can be used in the network. So kung naay murag parallel nga events, kana mo gamit og dummy. Activities can be either by their endpoints such as 1, 2, 2, 4, etc. So ibalik na po niya. Anak ko day. And this is activity on node and activity on arrow. So for this network, the network diagram indicates sequence of relationships among major activities on a project. So natay activity A, B, C, D, ano naman ni E. So nasaag ni siya. Sa lang ni D. Niya F ni G. So A, B, C, D, F, and G. The network diagram, relationships, and project. For instance, activity 2 to 4. So asa man ni si activity 2 to 4. So mga ni si activity C. Cannot be started according to the network until after activity 1 to 2 is completed. Dummy activity is an arrow on a network showing the dependent relationships between two activities. So meaning ni si event si activity G or si activity 5 to 6, maklaro ba? This is 5, this is 6. So dili maka-start si activity 5 to 6 if dili mahuman si activity 2 to 4. Okay, kung wala man gud ning dami diri, so wala siya dependency. Na para makita nga dependency activity C, this one, sa activity G, I mean dependency activity G sa activity C, na need ta mo provide og dami. Duration of an activity is the time it takes an activity to be finished. In short, this is the normal time duration of a task. Duration activity is the span of time from early start to its early finish. So the path. A path is a sequence of activities that leads from the starting node to the finishing node. Thus the sequence 1 to 4, 6. So path, so that is from the start to finish ng node. So for this one natay duha. So actually tulo ni siya ka path kaya na pa may dami. So path 1, 2, 4, 6. So dala. This path. Sige na. 1, 2, 4, 6. So this is one path. And another. That 1, 3, 5, 6. That's another path. Then also the last one. 1, 2, 2, 4, 4, 5, and 5, 6. So there are total of 3 paths. Then one of these paths is considered as the critical path. So unsa man ang critical path? So wala pa man day tayo number of days. So ang critical path class mao nang pinaka long, pinakataas nga time sa kaning tanang path ato na ipakita. Okay. Kita ra sa next slides. So comments or notes. So dapat i-take note nato. The length or time of any path can be determined by adding the expected time of the activities along that path. So i-add ra na nato tanang time. Number of days or number of weeks for the activities. So makabuhat na ta og total path. The path with the longest time catches management interest because it governs the project completion time. So mao na siya gitawag og critical path. In short, the expected duration of a project is equal to the expected time of longest path. If there are delays along the longest path, naturally there is also corresponding delay in project completion time. Therefore, any attempt to shorten the project completion time must be concentrate on the longest sequence. longest path, critical path, slack time, critical path. Sige, padayon sa takay mo. Di niya masabtan. Itong life figure. So, natin mga illustration for precedence. So, same rin sa katong principles. Following figure, activity A must be completed first before activity B and so on. Dili dapat ma-complete po si B before C. In the following diagram, activity A and activity B has to be completed first before activity C can begin. But A and B could be worked on at the same time. So si A and si B, pwede rasad na siya parallel nga work, pwede rasad pwede ra magdungan, pwede ra di magdungan, as long as if mahumana silang duha, pwede na maka-start si C. And baliktad sa last illustration, if activity must precede B and C, the network will be as follows. So baliktad. So if activity A daw, dapat mag-una sa B and C, ano yung network diagram. Balik naman, no? So when two activities have the same start and ending nodes, the node is and activity is used to preserve the different identity of each activity. Ni ganina. Also this one. So rules for numbering events in a network diagram. All events should be numbered starting from left to right. Ano mention na sa nanako? No event number should be lower than the number of event preceding it. Left to right direction. Event number should increase from left to right. Events should be numbered from top to bottom. Similarly, increasing should be consistent from top to bottom or from bottom to top. Another example sa ubos sa figure. 1, 2. So, sayop na siya. If may tag top to bottom, dapat this should be 2, this should be 3. Dili. Kay mas una man rin. Top to bottom and left to right man ta. So, 3, 4. Ano? So, here's the example. So, karon pa ta makatakol example. From the following table of information, draw a precedence diagram, find the critical path, and determine the expected duration of a project. So we have a series of activities, A, C, D, B, E, F, I, J, G, H, K. And natay precedence, A, C. So A precedes C and B. And there are the expected time, 4, 4, 12, 2, etc. So solution, use pencil in constructing precedence diagram. Activities without predecessors are placed at the start of the network. So what are the activities nga walay predecessors? So those activities A, E, and G. So kaning pat kita ba? Tulo day. So activity A, walay nag-una. Activity E and activity G. So ari na mag-una na siya sa this is for step 1. For then human, activities with multiple predecessors are located at path intersections. So next, natay C. Nagsunod, C precedes A. I mean, succession na din. A precedes C and B man daw. So natay C and B. So after sa A. In C, C precedes D. So after sa C, natay D. Then D precedes I. So after sa D, natay I. And B precedes I also. So nag-intersect ang atong B ug D. Since si B and D precedes I. Next, E precedes F. So this one. Another path. Then F precedes J, where J is the end. So end activity is J. So this one. And also, I precedes J. So nag-abot din ni C, F and C, I. Then G precedes H. Nata there is obos. Since since walay nag-una sa G, sorry. Nagsunod niya is H, where H precedes K. Sunod sa H kay K, and K is also an end activity. So all in all, nag-abot sila dari nga node. Sunod, wala niya kinabiran ang node, no? End na lagi. So dapat natin number sa nodes. So ito na nabiran na. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So ano sa ito yung ipangita sa problem? Draw the precedence diagram. So nanatay precedence diagram, which is this one. Then find the critical path. So to find the critical path, ato sang i-list down ang mga paths. So we have ACDIJ. ACDIJ, this one, kaning ginababuan nga path, ACDIJ. The next, ABIJ. Kani, next path, IJ. EFJ, so this one, EF and J. Then the last path, GHK, this one. Then naman tayo expected time days. So we just have to add the days of completion for each activity. So for A, natay 4 days, C, natay 12, D, 2, I, 12, J, 9. So i-add na nato tanan. So after adding the expected time of days for each path, then evaluate na to ang longest nga path mo prevail. Mao ni siya atong tawagon og critical path. Critical path. Naman sulatan. Then sunod, determine the expected duration of the project. So how to determine the duration of the project? So katong atong critical path, man natoy duration sa atong project. The duration of the project is 39 working days. Calendar days or days ra man ang ibutang. So, ano lang. Sabay naman ang kay time. We only have 12 minutes. So if makakita mo sa nasa modules tab, assignment tab na nakagi-upload ng assignment dara. So that will be due on next meeting. Sa among sunod magkita. November 9. So, para lang ma-practice sa network diagram. So next meeting, kasi nag-upload ko this weekend or tomorrow o masin this weekend para makabasa-basa mo og una kay mga mag-advance study ba mo. Balo ba ako ninyo mag-advance study gid ba mo, sayang kayo ang time no. Lock pa ang assignment. Lock pa di eh. Sige, open lang ko na later. Sure ka, lock pa. 1 PM akong gibutang. Ang usbo na. 1 PM din na. Para makakita mo. If na may question, pwede na mo. Assignment number 3, no? One PM, good. 11 man ta din eh. Ano 1 PM na. Ang assignment kay mas mubo pa na sa kanang example. Sige, kaysa ito wala na account sa attendance be. Group 1, Asconia, Chua, Donaire, Ferolino, Hortilano, Letonwa, Mansueto, Palugod, Plando, Serrano, Tang, Veloso.
Jerusalem, sir, group 3.
Jerusalem Group 3.
Tupa, sir, group 2.
Si Oliva na to, si Oliva, no? Manday. Kinsa? Group 2?
Tupa, sir, group 2.
Veloso Group 1. So, check daw yung assignment. Marag na sync na. Wala pa dito na check. Jerusalem. Group 3. Oo man naman. So, Veloso. Yan na. Pwede ra mo mag-Word document. Kung asa mo ganahan, mag-ring drawing. Pwede ra. As long as makita lang ang network diagram. Pag yeah. So, ganito yung assignment. So, using the information, draw a precedence diagram, find the paths, expected duration, determine the activities on the critical path. Atong activities dire kay naka nodes naman. So, mas sayon pa yun siya kay activity o nodes. Kung inyong i-try, mas lisod to buhaton ng activity on arrows. Kaya ikaw po mag-con sa mga nodes. Kaya naka-number pa yun daan. Okay? Questions? Clarifications? Negative reactions? Pwede ra mong mangutan na. Ayaw mo pangutan na kwarta kaya wala po ko na. Okay. So, if wala na, that's it for today. Pwede na mo matog. Bye.